So I'm in my IntelliJ now. So let's create the packages first for this chapter 20. So Alt insert package chapter 20, and I will just mark it as Singleton. Okay, and let me copy this so that I can create the similar. Control C, and I press enter. So in our source main, it has been created. The package has been created. Now let me create it in the test package as well. So Alt insert again, package, Control V, Singleton. So we have got the packages created now. Now to save some time, I will copy the Java Pojo class from the previous chapter, and then we'll make some necessary changes on it. So let me take it from the previous chapter 19. Control C here, and then Control V, and I will make it as say market data Singleton, maybe Singleton. Okay. Okay. So now let's do some cleanup here. Let's regenerate the Serialization UID. So I will create it here, then Alt enter. So I've got this Serialization UID, and I can randomly change it by just clicking here. So we have got this Singleton class. Let's make it Singleton first, as we discussed. So first of all, I need to make the constructor as private. So I'll create a constructor and select none, and then mark it as private so that no client can create using the new operator outside this. And then after this, let me create a instance first. Which is created at the time this class is initialized. Should be private first because we are creating it private static and final. And then I will mark it as market data Singleton and mark this object as instance. So this is the instance which we will be using throughout the JVM process, and use this as say new market data Singleton. So this instance is created because it's static. It would be created once this market data Singleton is initialized. And we have marked this private now. And now let's create a getter for this using a static method as well. So whenever the client wants to use this, the only instance of this object, this is the only one which is to be used, and that actually suffices our Singleton pattern for this class. Public static market data Singleton, say get instance. This is the getter method for this only instance, and here we will return instance. Control Alt L. Okay. Now we have we created this class as a Singleton class. Now let's implement what we have discussed, that we need to implement the readResolve method so that whenever the object is deserialized back as a copy of this instance by the read object, we will replace it with the original instance, not the copy of the object. So being said that, let's implement this first. So I'll go to last, and okay. I think getter setters and everything is looking good. So I don't need write, replace, and write object. Let's implement the default write object method here. So if there's no use for write object, I can simply remove it. So I will remove both of these methods, which is write object and write replace, because we don't want to do anything there. We are just using the default JVM process. In the read object, this is also looking good because in the read object, we are simply calling the default read object, which is if we will only use the default JVM process, which is to deserialize everything except transient and static fields. So here it will create a copy of this object. Now in the readResolve, this is where we will actually return the instance, the Singleton instance that we have created at the time of initialization. So I'll remove this, Control Y, and I will return instance instead of copy. But before we do that, let me actually, to ensure that this is all good and we are not exactly returning the copy of the original object when we got this read object, default read object method. So we will just print out the hash code, because hash code is something which is always takes the if we haven't overridden the hash code method, it will always take the object memory address and create a hash code out of it. So it will always ensure that two separate objects living at two different memory addresses in heap, they will have different hash codes. So this is what we want to see here. So I'll just use printf, and I will call this at deserialize objects hash code is say %d, because it would be a number, integer number. So and this dot hash code. Okay, put it in a separate line. So here, after this read object, once we get the copy of the original object, then the readResolve method will be called, and then this would be representing that deserialized copy, and we are printing the hash code here, and this hash code would be different than the instance hash code. So I will also write this that okay, so system.out, I will also print out the instance objects hash code and should be instance.hash code. Okay, so that we have a different. So these we suppose that these two would be separate numbers. The first one is the copy of the original object instance. It should be copy of it, and that's why it should be a different memory location. And this is the original instance object, the singleton object that we serialized. So guys, let's revise what we have done. So we have created a Java Pojo class, which we have marked as singleton. So the way we marked its singleton is that we are creating a private constructor for it, and then we are creating a private static final reference of it, which is instance, and which will be created at the time of initialization of this class using a new operator. And then finally, we are providing a get instance method to get the only singleton instance of this Java Pojo. And then for serialization and deserialization, because we are implementing this as a serializable, so we don't do anything for the write object or write replace method, because we just want to rely on the default serialization process of Java, which will serialize this instance. And but for the read object and read resolve, for the read object, we again rely on the default JVM deserialization process by calling this default read object, which is actually a copy of the original instance object. So to maintain the singleton pattern, we want the same instance, not a copy of it. That's why we have provided this readResolve method, in which we are returning the original instance which was created at the time of initialization of this class. So maintaining the singleton pattern for this. And we have also printed some debug statements to ensure that the deserialized copy of the object has got a different hash code than the instance hash code and the instance hash code. Yeah. Now let's write some unit tests to assert that what we have learned in this Java Pojo.